Servus and welcome to another episode of Pro Hockey Pod, episode 75. Bit of a break recently. Things have been kind of crazy here, season grinding down, and now we got some time. And this week, very happy to have on back to the goalie series. You know, myself being a goalie, having played, it's always nice when I can get a fellow goalie on. This week, I have a guy that's been long time here in Germany, played for the national team, worked his way up at a young age, very well known, I would say, guy in Germany. You know, you think of his name, played, as I said, for many years, been in a lot of tough situations, a lot of big game situations, and you know, just keeps proving that every year he gets a little wiser and gets a little more calmer in the net there. And I'm very happy to have him. Welcome to the Pro Hockey Pod, Felix Brückmann.
Thanks for having me.
We always start off kind of like this. You were born, obviously, I believe in Breisach, maybe. I'm trying to say the German way, but what part of Germany is that, and what's kind of your earliest childhood memory growing up there?
So the correct name in German would be Breisach.
Breisach.
Yeah,
Very good.
that's a small city close to my hometown Freiburg. That's Breisach is just the place where I'm born. I grew up in Freiburg, a small village
Yeah.
close to Freiburg, so that's where I'm from. And it's in southwest Germany, I would say, close to the French and the Swiss border, right in that triangle down there. And I had a perfect childhood, I would say. I grew up in a calm area. We could play many different sports, soccer, hockey, street hockey, whatever we would like, me and my two brothers. So I would say, looking back to that, I had an great childhood. I'm really grateful for that.
I'm always interested to talk to the European guys. What drew you to the sport of hockey? Because obviously, as you know, like Germany, Europe, for the most part, the first sport over here is in Europe, they would say football. Obviously, in Canada, we say soccer. But you know, it's obviously that's the first sport that comes to mind. Everyone kind of plays that growing up. But what drew you to the sport of hockey?
That's easy. It's my older brother. So he played hockey. He got to hockey through a friend of his, and as a younger brother, you always try to follow the older one, I guess. And me and my younger brother, so I'm the middle one, we wanted to start playing hockey too. So yeah, my parents they brought me to the very young age. I think I was 5, maybe something like that. I don't quite remember. So yeah, I got to hockey through my older brother.
And you mentioned you have two brothers there. You're the middle. I obviously played against Alexander there in Freiburg, the defenseman for my years in the Dell too. He's still playing now. Actually, got a game tonight as we were talking about off camera. But how important was it for you just kind of having that support system of both the older brother and the younger brother, and all of you having kind of that bond between playing the sport of hockey?
I think that's from a parent's perspective now, I would say good for my parents that we all played the same sport because in Freiburg there's only one rink. Like in most cities in Germany, I would say there's only one rink per town. So I was always driving there with my younger brother, watch his practice. If they needed a goalie, sometimes I would jump in there too. Then I had my practice, and later on my older brother has practice. So I spent a lot of time in the rink, in a beautiful rink in Freiburg there, growing up. And yeah, even if there was no practice or we had a weekend where were no games, we played together at home. It's always nice if you have two brothers and two defensemen, one goalie. We had a lot of fun together playing street hockey. I think the whole neighborhood came by then, and yeah, having two brothers, it's sometimes it's not easy, especially if you're the middle one. But I have just so many nice memories looking back to that.
You mentioned the arena. We joked about it off camera. It's probably one of the most interesting closed rinks in Germany. Obviously, Germany has a lot of ones that are outdoor and kind of have that cool atmosphere. And Freiburg is one that sh almost should be outdoor for kind of the way it is. But I always like asking goalies, what made you become a goalie? Like for me, I was always fascinated by the goalie mask and it being painted. So my parents always said, yeah, well, you have to wait till this age and then you can become a goalie. So that kind of made me go that route. Like, what was the reason for you becoming a goalie?
So I started as a player, like almost everyone probably learning how to skate, and then there was, if I remember that right, a few practices with the team, and I didn't like it to be a player. I just didn't like to do the drills, whatever. So I kind of stopped playing hockey, and then once again, my older brother kind of brought me into the goalie, playing goalie, because he was sleeping overnight with a friend who played in the DL too. It was Simon Danner. So they are the same age. They played street hockey at Simon Danner's place, and we picked him up. And they were still out playing, and they kind of were asking if someone wants to go in the net, and they had the whole equipment there. So I got into the whole goalie equipment. I jumped into the net, and I started loving that, loving stopping pucks or tennis balls at street hockey. And yeah, that's what made me try it one more time playing hockey, but in the net. And since then, I'm in the net, and I'm still loving stopping pucks.
Even though now they might come a little harder at your head
That's for
sometimes.
sure.
That's always a trait there that being a goalie is just part of the job. But I always like talking too about with the Germans, especially like you mentioned you grew up in Freiburg there. What was kind of the minor hockey structure for you growing up? Obviously in Canada, we basically have every age group going up, and there's maybe 3 to 4 levels for every age group. I know it's not the same here in Germany, but was it kind of structured the same as it is now with like the U20, U17, U15, U13, or was it structured different back then?
I would say almost the same.
Yeah.
I think it changed over the years a little bit. When I was playing junior hockey, it ended up with the under 18. So that was my last year playing junior hockey. But it was probably kind of the same, but it was always like 2 years together. So the guys born 90 were playing together with the 91s, and then the next year you went up playing with the 89s. So always those 2 years together. Yeah, that was basically the system. And I think what helped me back in Freiburg was that there wasn't that many kids playing hockey, especially not in the net. So I played a lot of games, and I practiced a lot because, like I said, I was coming earlier with my younger brother, and sometimes there was only one goalie. So they asked me if I want to practice, and then um, I practiced a lot, and it was a great childhood I had.
That would have been really good for your development, like being able to practice with the older age group at a younger age, right? Like you as a goalie, you're seeing the harder shots, the quicker releases, like something that maybe other goalies didn't get, always practicing with, their age group always.
I agree. I think that was, looking back now, maybe one of the reasons why I kind of made it to the pro hockey, because in a very early age, I learned to play with and against older guys, which, yeah, I'm pretty sure that helped me a lot.
Hmm. And I always like to ask this too, like as you know, for goalies, for us to develop and I think for us to train, there's always an importance of, whether it's having goalie coaches or in the off season or maybe during a break, you're going to a goalie school. We talked about it off camera, like in Canada, there's goalie coaches every 3 blocks because obviously hockey's one of the number one sports there. But for you growing up, throughout your career, I would say, was there any goalie schools you would ever like travel to or a goalie coach that was commonly in Germany that you liked attending, or how did you kind of, continue to develop your game every year as you were getting older?
Um, yeah, when back to my hometown team in Freiburg, they had a pro team too, which played in the, now they say, or they call it the DL2.
Yep.
And they had a Czech goalie, Hugo Haas. Maybe you heard of his name, and he was the starter for that team, and he was coaching the junior hockey teams too a little bit. He couldn't speak German or English, but at this time in Freiburg, we had so many Czech coaches. There's for some reason a Czech influence, and they were translating that. So we were lucky enough to have once a week goalie practice, and all the goalies from under 18 till the 6-year-old goalies were together on the ice, and we were doing goalie practice. And in addition to that, in some summers, I went to goalie schools. Back then, I think, or I believe he's still pretty big in Germany, is Helmut de Raaf. He was having a goalie school in Bad Tölz, and four players and goalies. And so that's what I remember where my parents sent us in summertime a couple times.
Those memories I always think are awesome because, like, it's the off season, but you still have that passion to maybe go on the ice and go to these camps and work on your skills. Like, I know for me in North America growing up, like, I always didn't try to fully get away from hockey. I would still do those camps and get ready for the season, but I would also have a break. So it was a nice balance. Speaking of kind of that, like, how maybe now it's changed, obviously you being a father and everything, but how did you for most of your life, like how would you spend your off seasons, like, through the summer? Like, would you take a full break from hockey minus the camps and just kind of focus on, hanging out with friends, relaxing, or how do you like to spend your off seasons?
I think like almost every German, especially a few years back, there is no ice during summertime, so there is a break where you don't play hockey at all. Most of the time, it's in junior hockey. Probably you play until end of March, and then you start in middle of August, probably. So there's a pretty long gap without ice. And with the junior teams there, we always had still practice, summer practice. So we were working out most of the time playing soccer. But yeah, back then it was totally off hockey. If I think about my off season now as a pro player, I would say it's still important to spend some time without hockey. Right now, in my age, especially, I think it's good to give the body the chance to heal a little bit. Hockey is probably not the most healthiest sport, so there you need time to recover. Um, so if I would go in the off season now, probably I would be. Hopefully, our season ends end of April. That means I can take some weeks off and then start going on the ice in July. So there's probably 2 months no ice. But still, you have to be working out, getting in physical best shape you can.
That's something I think that's changed a lot over the past, I'd say 5 to 10 years. Like, kind of like when I was growing up, like we're the same age. So I remember it was, as I mentioned, you would play hockey during the year and then you would start training in the off season. Then you wouldn't start skating maybe until like June, July, depending on when your season started or wherever you're going. Where nowadays I feel like kids are like it's hockey 12 months of the year and they just feel like more is better when sometimes, it is good. Like as you mentioned, give your body a break, give your mind a break, enjoy it. Some of these kids enjoy being a kid in the summers, like, the hot weather with friends and stuff. Like you don't always have to be in a rink. So I like your approach. Obviously, I think it has an impact on why you're still healthy and being able to play at such a high level today because you know your limits and you know that rest is a weapon at times and you need that break. Back to your career there. So as you mentioned, you end up playing in the minor hockey system there in Freiburg, and then you make the jump to the young Adler, I believe, to play U18 there over here in Mannheim. Like, what kind of led to that transition?
I think because I went to the goalie schools in the summer times to the Helmut de Raff camps, that was basically the first contact because Helmut de Raff, he was the how could you say, like he was the head coach and GM
Hmm.
probably of the Jungadler of the under 18 team, which is now the under 20 team. And yeah, he was reaching out to my parents through a letter. He was sending a letter to my parents asking if we would like to come to Mannheim, just visit and see the whole setup. And so I got an invitation. We went up to Mannheim, which is kind of like 200 kilometers, 2.5, 2 hours probably with the car up north. So we went there, we watched it, and there was basically no decision to make because if you see that setup what Mannheim has, that's almost like a dream come true for a young kid to play hockey. And yeah, I think if I wouldn't had this chance, there was no way to make it to the DL probably. So I'm really grateful for that opportunity. And yeah, that's the way how I came to Mannheim. And I ended up playing for the Jungadler 2 years in a boarding school. And if I look back to that time, that's just awesome memories being away from home, which at the first couple of weeks was pretty tough. I was homesick. I thought about going back, but I'm happy I stayed. And yeah, all those memories playing together with 20 friends, all in the boarding school. We had a great time there.
Guys had a pretty good team too. I noticed your second year there, I believe you guys end up winning the championship. So, but yeah, you mentioned it, like living away from home from the first time. That's always, as a young person, that can be challenging. And sometimes you want to go home, but as you said, you stuck through it and it allowed you to kind of grow as a person and eventually have the career you've had. One question I always like to ask the Germans as well who've been on this podcast is in North America, when we were growing up, like from my age or our age, I should say, the main focus always was whether it was the CHL, so the OHL, the QMJHL, the WHL, the Major Junior Hockey League. I grew up in a town that had a team, so that was basically what I knew and where I wanted to play at the time. And then if you don't go that route, there was also the NCAA route. I'm just curious for you back then when you were kind of growing up being 16, 17, 18 years old, were you knowledgeable of that route at all? Was there any talk of that over here in Germany, or were you more focused on, I want to try to get to the pro level as quick as I can?
No, I was trying to go over. Um, when I was done with junior hockey in Germany, I was 17, so that's pretty young. And the decision in Germany back then was either I stop playing hockey or I try to get a pro with 17, which is, especially as a goalie, very young. So I tried to go over to play prep school,
Hmm.
high school, and then maybe make it to a college team. But we were just too late. Helmut Raff was helping us, me and some other players in the same age. We were uh, two players were there, and they tried to go over, and they actually went there for some tryouts, but we were too late for the scholarships. And a school year in North America can be really expensive, and we weren't able to afford like
Hmm.
pay it yourself. It's I don't know, maybe 40,000 bucks.
Oh yeah.
So it's pretty expensive. So yeah, I tried to go over, didn't work out, and then yeah, I was 17, turning pro. I was lucky enough that Mannheim offered me a contract, and my first 3 years I played in the DL2 with Heilbronn, which is kind of like a farm team, or it was back then. Yeah, it was again very lucky to have this setup with a really top organization like Mannheim. They have a farm team, so I ended up um, playing pro hockey was starting with 17.
We both have played for that organization. Um, Both of us, that was our first pro organizations in Germany. I was there when between the Mannheim partnership had just ended the year before, and then when I left 2 years later, they started up again. But I'm always curious. Like I really like that city. I hope they can get back to the DL2 because when I was there, I felt like the fans were very supportive, and as I said, there was good town right there by the rink. The apartments were good, cars were great. But how was the adjustment for you jumping to pro at such a young age? Like we have been told our whole lives, and I think it's true for the most part. Goalies normally take a little bit longer to mature in age and maybe to realize how to fully play the position. So you mentioned you're signing this contract, you're starting at 17, 18 years old, and you end up playing 3 years there with Heilbronn. Like, how was the adjustment for you? And secondly, how was the second year for you? Because I always think the first year you just kind of get thrown in, you get your feet wet, and then you know what to do during the summer train to come back the second year and you're kind of knowing what to expect.
Yeah, like you said, and for me as well, it took me almost that complete first season to adjust to pro hockey, and wasn't an easy start for me. In my first couple practices, I got hurt right away. I broke my finger, probably because I didn't have a new equipment. I still had my old junior hockey equipment, and maybe those shots from the pro hockey players a little bit harder, everything a little bit faster. So I got hurt right away. So that made it a little bit tougher too. And I don't know if I can say that on your podcast, but I remember my first time walking into the Mannheim locker room, and I shit my pants. Like that's if you walk in there back then, all those big names, NHL guys, Dan McGillis, René Cobbe, Freddie Brathwaite was the goalie. Like you come in there as a 17-year-old kid. I don't know. It took me probably 2, 3 weeks to say my first word in the locker room. It was, yeah, it was a little bit scary too, but I was not thinking about anything. I was just going there and enjoying the moment, just being a pro hockey player, I guess, and worked my way up. But like you said, it's tough to make that adjustment, and it took me probably the whole first season. And I started with the second season, and then I even had a third season in Heilbronn. Yeah, took some time to get used to playing against adults.
One thing I always find funny at being that age and like looking back is I don't know if the kids today would realize it, like the young guys on our team, like the who get called up to practice, but like when you mentioned going into the Adler locker room the first time, all these guys were men. Like vets, bigger guys, like facial hair, all this stuff. Like I don't know if the kids see it the same today with us, but like I just feel like they were built different back then. Like I remember my days too, and I'm like, man, I don't know if it's the same now. But yeah, you mentioned the adjustment there as a goalie, and one other cool thing you did at the young age too, and you've done this multiple times in your career, but first, you get to represent Germany there at the U20s, and in 09, 10 there, you guys end up winning the gold medal there in the D1A. Just maybe talk about, you know, first experience with the national team there, and obviously being able to win the gold medal.
Yeah, it's always an big honor to play for your own country. Under 18, under 20, that's all great memories. I was the backup at this tournament. I was backing up Philipp Grubauer, which is probably very known goaltender
Nobody.
so yeah, I was not lucky enough to play like the top division, but we had an awesome tournament. I remember it was in France. We played in the Alps, and yeah, we were pretty good. We had a good two ages together, 90s and 91, and I think there was only one real tight game against France. But other than that, we walked through that tournament kind of, and yeah, we won the gold medal, even if is it the second division, but still great memories on those tournaments and back then.
But it allowed you guys, when you guys win that one, you get promoted. Like the team the next year is promoted to the first one, right?
Right.
Like yeah, exactly.
So I was the older age, so we kind of did the favor
Yeah, yeah.
for the younger guys, but that's how the system is. And just being part of a world championship, it doesn't matter which age. I think it doesn't matter which division, if it's the
Hmm.
top division, C division, whatever. It's just an unbelievable feeling to play at those tournaments.
Well, I tell anyone it doesn't matter what it is if you get to represent your country at some point. I did it one time when I was growing up. You have the World Juniors, which is mostly OHL guys and NCAA guys, and the one below is the one where if you're playing Tier 2 junior about to go NCAA, which I was doing, so I got to play for Canada then, and we won bronze there. And I mean, it was a lot of fun. Played against a lot of guys who ended up having long careers in pro, so it was a cool experience, full barn every night. Where in the Alps did you play? Because I like so in France, like I played in Morzine for 2 years, and then there was also Chamonix, which was like an hour from us. Like, were you in one of those Alps or somewhere else?
I think the city was called Megève.
Oh, you're in Megève.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So that's basically the Chamonix side. So
Yeah.
yeah, okay. I've played there before.
Yeah.
That's an interesting rink too.
It's two places, one there and then one other rink. I don't remember the name of the city, but I remember I was backing up and it was minus 10 degrees, probably even colder. I was
Yeah.
freezing on the bench. I remember the small barn there.
Um, that's funny. I always love going on memory lane. You remember things that just
I remember too at that game we were up 6-0 probably. I don't know. It could be against Ukraine back then. And after the second period, the goalie coach came and for a second I thought he asked me if I would like to jump in, but he offered me to stay in the locker room so I could watch the third period in the warm locker room, which is interesting.
he saw you were shivering on the bench and he felt bad for you. Oh, that's funny. Back to your career then. So as you mentioned, you played those 3 years in Heilbronn, and then you end up making the jump to the DL at a young age. Still, like you're 21 years old. Like I mean, I remember being 21. I was in my third year of college, nowhere near ready to play pro. Again, like we're talking about making these big jumps at such a young age. I think this might just be an attestment or like show how strong you are mentally, like to be able to handle these challenges at such a young age. But How was that adjustment for you? And it must have been also kind of like a dream come true, obviously, being in the DEL at such a young age and also with an organization like Mannheim.
Yeah. Um, I think back then I didn't even realize how big of a jump that was. That was then my fourth year of pro already, my first year in the DL, but I probably didn't even realize that that's the top division in Germany. It was just kind of sticking to the process of getting better every day and developing every year for a little bit. So yeah, I think I had a good third year in Heilbronn, which I don't remember exactly how many games I played, but
20,
somewhere.
26,
So
according to Elite Prospects.
so that's for 20 year not bad, I would
Mm-hmm.
say. So
It's half the games.
yeah, so I guess that made the decision that I get a chance to be the backup in Mannheim, and yeah, the starter for back then was Freddie Brathwaite, and I think looking back and even like through my whole career, I am really lucky to have had him in those young ages. He was almost like a not an older brother, probably like a father for me, kind of. He was yeah, almost double the age, and he was leading by example. He was helping me a lot, and he showed me how to approach yeah, pro hockey, or how approach to get better every day. And yeah, I was honored to make the step to the DL, and then I guess you need always a little bit of luck, because my first games I played because Freddie got injured. So I had to jump into the cold water in the DL. I think our first game that season we played on the road in Hamburg, and Freddie played that game, but he somehow got injured during that game. So I got the next game on Sunday was the home opener, and I got my first start. That was pretty amazing and quite an experience to play in a sold out hockey rink in Mannheim, the arena that fits 13,600 people. I still remember some parts of that game, even though it's almost 12 years now, which is a long time. But yeah, I was lucky to get that chance, and then you always have to be ready in those moments. And yeah, but during that time, I think I didn't realize that I'm playing in the top division in Germany. I just played hockey and tried to stop as many pucks as I can.
Well, you did a very good job of that. You end up that season winning the DL Rookie of the Year, which is a big achievement for like
Probably the only rookie.
probably the only guy in the only guy in the league. So like, well, he's got it. No, but like honestly, like back to what we talked about, like being thrown into the cold water there when Freddie got hurt, being like 21 years old, like there's a lot of goalies who play in the ECHL and the AHL and don't really develop fully or don't understand the position full enough to make the jump to the highest level until they're like 28, 29. Like there's so many stories like that. So it's honestly cool to see like the success you've had. Like if anyone like goes on Elite Prospects and searches your name, like you've had consistency throughout your career, jumping between obviously Mannheim and Wolfsburg and back to Mannheim. And it just seems like every year teams know what they're going to get from you. And I think as a, whether you're a coach, a GM, a teammate, it's always, nice and reassuring to know, yeah, like we're going to get this consistent effort from Felix every night. Like it obviously allows guys to play their game more, be at ease, knowing that you got their back. So, as I mentioned, you played a couple years there in Mannheim, and as I said, your stats were always very good. I'm just looking down here right now. First year 917, second year 929 save percentage, then a 933, then a 926. When you went to Wolfsburg, like those save percentages, I mean, you're stopping 92%, 93% of shots every night. You're going to give your team a good chance to win. You end up going to Wolfsburg there in 14, 15. Like what kind of led you to that decision, or was it, you were just looking to try something else, or kind of just worked out that way? Like I'm always curious how guys go about, obviously changing teams, and someone like yourself that had been having success in Mannheim.
Yeah, I think the reason why I made that move, or why I decided to leave Mannheim, which is always tough, you don't want to leave organizations like that, was just that I felt if I want to be a number one goalie in that league, I have to go away and see if I can make it, because Mannheim always, like those 3 years, I've been the backup, and it was clear before the season that I'm the younger guy, I'm the young goalie, I will get my games, but you're the backup. And yeah, I just thought I can play in that league, and I want to try and see if I can make it as a number one goalie too. And back then I was 23 years old when I made that move, and I had offers from different teams too, but I had good talks with Wolfsburg. There was a coach, Pavel Gross, which is known in Mannheim or maybe now in Europe too. He's actually or right now he's the coach of Sparta Prague, and he was, yeah, he was trying to get me there, and I was happy I get the chance to go to Wolfsburg. They were always a little bit under the radar, but they always made the playoffs, and that's obviously the time of the year where you want to be between the pipes and go for, yeah, winning it all.
That's a great transition that you brought up there because I want to talk to you about this. I'm looking at your playoff stats in Wolfsburg. So 3 years, the first year you played 11 games, then 14, then 18. So you guys obviously went very deep in the playoffs. As you mentioned, that's the time everyone wants to play their best. And like I said before, 927, 925, 932, you're constantly giving your team a chance to win every night. How do you, as an athlete, as a goalie, um, allow yourself to maybe take your game to the next level? Like if there was any things maybe you look back on now that like you would say, yeah, like I was able to have success because I did this or I focused on this. Like just kind of curious as a goalie, we're the last line of defense. And I know for me personally, like I was always a competitor in the playoffs. Like that was always when I brought out my best game because I had a strong mental game for most of my career when I had success. So what would you say maybe the secrets I'll say or the strengths that you had that allowed you to, always be there for your team in those moments?
Well, first of all, I think I wasn't alone. It's even you're the goalie, it's still a team sport, and you only can be successful together with the team. You need everyone playing together, and it's kind of interferes with each other. So you need a good team and a good goalie, and vice versa. Um, yeah, but you're mentioning all the numbers and all the save percentage. That's like that's an result, or that's like the end product, and you can't focus on that. I know that's sounds easy, but it's tough. Like I catch myself sometimes watching my stats too, but
Yeah.
it doesn't help. Like you need to focus on the process. You need to focus on the here and now, and not on the end result, because you can't control what's gonna happen at the end of the day. You only can control yourself and the way you play. So that's all nice to hear, but yeah, I don't think there's a secret for good stats or for being successful. There's not a magic trick, I would say. It's
Hmm.
just like working the whole season, all the years, it adds up, and then you're able to play from the outside. It looks like extreme pressure, but you're able to play under pressure with poise and confidence. And I think that's, yeah, just yeah, a result of hard work and doing the word every day. Don't take practices lightly. Just practice with a purpose and know why you practice it. You practice to lead up into the game, and then
Hmm.
yeah, just try to stay in the here and now and eyes on puck all the time.
That's one thing I've really noticed about like we've only been together for 2 years now, but I've noticed with your game is one, you're very calm in the net. Um, as you mentioned, the poise, like you just seem so relaxed. It doesn't matter if we're up 5-0 or down 5-0. Like you're always the same, and I think that's a great attribute to have where you never show emotions. It doesn't change, and also just noticing like the small adjustments you've made from last year to this year in your game and how it's impacted your game is like, people always say as you get older, like our age, 34, turning 35, whatever, like it's all you're always going to be what you are. You can't change. And you're just another example of, yeah, if you just put your mind to it and make slight adjustments, it happens. One other thing I want to talk to you about, I don't know the full extent of it. I obviously just know from hearing from people about it. I was in the Del 2 at this time working, and I just kind of heard your name about being thrown around a bit. But the one year you were there in Wolfsburg, you ended up missing the full season. I don't know what the injury was or anything like that, but I'm just curious about the mental side of that. Like, how did you mentally get through something like that where you miss a season and maybe there was people out there that would have been like, oh, he's done, like, like kind of one of those things people just said, whatever the injury was. But I'm always just curious, like, how you stayed positive every day and obviously worked so hard to get back. And, obviously the next season came back and put up great numbers again in Wolfsburg after not playing for 12 months.
Yeah, it was definitely not an easy year, but it started already the year before. The year before I didn't play, I had a tough year because I played consistently with pain. Um, my injury was a hip injury, so I ended up having hip surgery on both sides. And everyone playing hockey, especially goalie, know hips. That's a tough place to have an injury, and I needed surgery on both sides. And yeah, it took me the whole year. We found out that I need hip surgery at the beginning of the season when we do all those medical tests. And yeah, the doctor in Wolfsburg said something's going on. We need to make pictures there. And yeah, after we made an MRI and he found out what it was, he called me and he came to my apartment. I'm like, that's not a good sign when the doctor is coming home to you. And he said, hey, your hips are not good, both sides. And I was, first of all, I was surprised and it was shocked, but at the same time I was happy because I finally knew that something is wrong, and I know where the pain is coming from, which was a big relief for me, that I know, okay, I'm not uh, making something out. There is actually a big problem and it need to be done. And then yeah, the team doctor sent me to Munich to a specialist. And after the specialist looked at the pictures, he asked me if I have a plan B. I'm like, what do you mean, like plan B? He said, yeah, what, you have a degree in college or whatever, or like, I don't know if we can fix that so you can play hockey again. And that's I guess probably everyone can imagine that those news weren't easy to swallow. And it was anyway, it's a long train ride from back home from Munich to Wolfsburg, but this was probably the longest train ride in my life. I was having a lot of thoughts in my mind, but I knew, okay, we will get those surgeries done, and then I will fight my way back. And I think that was the key, that I right away found something that I can for sure play one more year or bring it back to the DL. I knew I am capable of doing this. And maybe, now probably I know that it was tough. That's the whole season, but maybe that was the best part about it, because I knew, okay, it's gonna be a full year. It's gonna be a different year, but I know I don't have to rush back. I can take my time. I can uh, spend time to get really healthy. Use that time to get healthy. And actually, I learned so much about hockey too in that season. Just watching and maybe realizing that it's only hockey. It's life goes on. I had a lot of time for my girlfriend, which is now my wife. We spent a lot of time together in the weekends, which you normally don't have during a season. And maybe that's something which helped me too, to yeah, don't lose focus in the rehab, because it was a long rehab. In total, I was in there for 18 months fighting back. But if I can say it now, it's still a big thanks to Wolfsburg. They helped me a lot, putting me in the right rehab spot. They asked the soccer team there, which is as the Bundesliga team in Germany and junior team there. They helped me back then, so I was in a perfect spot for rehab, and I was having a good year. yeah, even though I didn't play a game, I was able to go on the ice late December, and then I was working with the goalie coach back then, Ilari Neckel. He's goalie coach in Landshut now, and he put a lot of effort in it too to get me back. We were going on the ice before or after the team. I had nothing to do with the team in that year, but he was helping me big time to yeah being able to play hockey again.
What I can't imagine like 18 months and like as soon as you told me it was both. Like I have a torn labrum in my one hip and I played through it my whole pro career and like just because I was an unknown import, I knew if I had the surgery, my career was probably done. So I took the risk and obviously got 7 years out of it. And so I kind of know the pain of playing through it, but then I can't imagine having it in both and then having the surgery. You know, you're doing two times the recovery basically. You got to do each hip. So
Yeah, it's not the same time. You have to do one hip
yeah.
first. I remember was the right hip in August, and then you kind of fight back. You're in a good mood, and then in October, you know, I have to do this again on the other side, and that was probably the toughest time to have. You know, okay, I made it. Now let's go on the ice. No, you go back in the hospital, have a second surgery. But yeah, I know it's tough, but it's my story, and I'm happy I had this experience, and it helped me be more, how you say, like resistance to
Yeah.
whatever happens. And
Was there any,
but
sorry, was there any doubt? Like if there's somebody listening who maybe has gone through some sort of surgery and, you know, they might feel at one point like, okay, like this isn't going to get anywhere and you did it for 18 months. Like was there ever a time in your head where you're like, okay, I could be done because it's just like the recovery was taking long or it's just like the same thing over and over again or you know the roller coaster of emotions, I
yeah,
would
for
say.
sure, it was a roller coaster. For sure, there was times where I was maybe even thinking if you don't know, okay, it's the second surgery. Okay, I'm making it back. Then the first steps on the ice, it's literally like learning how to skate again. For sure, you ask yourself, is it worth it? Why am I doing this? But for me, they were always they were there, but I knew that the answer is yes, I can do it. And doubts are always there. You always have like the mind is it's I think it's so unfair because it playing goalie, playing player, whatever it is, like the mind is always telling you to stop, or the mind is always telling you no, you can't do it, and you have to fight against those demons. And
Mm-hmm.
they were there in the rehab as well as in probably every game. You have to talk to yourself and beat your mind because it's unfortunately the mind tries to limit us, but we I think good enough to tell ourselves that we are better than our mind thinks.
Well, happily you got through it and as I said, you came back the next year and just picked up where you left off almost 2 years ago, and then that led you to come back here to Mannheim, where you've been the past 5 seasons here, including this one. And obviously, that's how we got to know each other here with me getting a job here last year. Another thing that's been cool for you throughout your career is you've played a lot of CHL, so the Champions Hockey League. You've done it multiple years. For those out there, it's kind of the same as they do in football with the playing the top team in every other country or teams from other countries, and you know your best against their best kind of thing. You travel there, they travel here. Like, have you enjoyed always playing that and kind of going up against like other teams in other countries? Like, it's just been something that you know when you get to do it, you're like, yeah, this is cool to go to Like we went to Finland last year, we went to Slovakia, Switzerland, obviously. Like, just talk about kind of maybe your experiences over the years of playing that tournament.
I really like that, and it's too bad that we did qualify to play it this year because I think this competition, the CHL, the Champions Hockey League in Europe, just gets better every year, and those not just to play against those teams, but to make those trips with your team and just travel somewhere, see different cities, see different opponents. It's just an awesome experience. It's almost kind of like playing with the national team. You represent Mannheim for sure, but on the other side you represent Germany. So I really like this competition, and hopefully I have the chance to play a few more games in the Champions Hockey League.
Speaking of the national team, is there any maybe national team, like as I said, you've done it many times in your career, whether it's been being at the Olympics, whether it's been at the World Championships, like is there a memory that kind of maybe sticks out to you about one of the times you represented Germany?
Yeah, so maybe the nicest or the biggest memory I have is the World Championship 21 in Riga. It was special because it was during the COVID time, so we were playing a World Championship in a bubble, which was quite an experience. And we ended up fourth place, so we played the semifinals against Finland, and then played the bronze medal game against the United States. And I was lucky enough to play that bronze medal game. I was mostly backing up during that tournament. Matthias Niederberger was the starter, but I played the bronze medal game. Unfortunately, we lost it, but it was still like the experience of it was unbelievable to play almost like the team. I remember it right, except for one or two guys were all NHL players. And that's just always nice to be on a big stage and try to show your best. And yeah, the other memory I have, or I'm really proud of, is being part of the Olympic team in 22 in Beijing. Again, COVID time, again, bubble. China was a little bit different with all those circumstances, but yeah, I was part of the team. I didn't play a game. I was more the third goalie, but I'm proud of myself that I can, yeah, call myself an Olympian.
No, it's a tremendous honor, and you mentioned like someone like yourself that's played every year, and there's been a lot of guys on those teams that are lots of NHL games, and you've just been a consistent guy over here in the DEL, and as a goalie too, like there's only three spots for most teams, like there's not eight defensemen and how many ever forwards, like there's only three guys. So for you to be considered every year in the top three German national guys, I think is a tremendous honor and something that you should, whenever your career ends down the road, you can look back and be like, hey, like that's consistently I was one of those guys, and that's obviously awesome to see. Couple more for you here. Obviously, you've been very generous with your time here, and I know it's always not easy doing it in a second language. So, um, where do you see yourself in maybe 5 years? Like, obviously, me and you we're turning 35 or 35 already, and can't play hockey forever, unfortunately. But have you thought about life after hockey, or maybe where you see yourself down the road?
Yeah, I think I want to play as long as I can because right now it's already the time where some of my buddies I played with they stop playing hockey, and if you talk to them, they even it's the first year they stopped or the second year they say, hey, if you have the chance and you're healthy, play as long as you can. And that's kind of my plan for the next couple of years to play, try to play on in the top division in Germany, try to play on the highest level I can. But the last 2 3 years in Mannheim, there was a young guy getting better and better every year, and I kind of enjoyed that because I think I could help him a little bit. I saw that we were talking and just sharing my experience I have or helping him develop. That was pretty awesome and pretty enjoyable too. And not just to play, but to back him up and help him and be there, challenging him every day in practice, seeing stuff, maybe helping him. So I think in 5 years, I'm almost 40. I could see myself as a goalie coach. You never know what's gonna happen, but that's kind of like the plan I have because if I stop, I think I'm still really close to obviously being a goalie, and yeah, I wanna help and share my knowledge I have. So if you ask me what's possible in 5 years, I hopefully find a job as a goalie coach.
First of all, your friends are right. Play as long as you can. I tell guys all that all the time because like I always find people who get to play a long time, they don't realize what comes next, and they don't real like it's nothing against them. They don't realize how lucky they've been to play as long as they have because they've had success in their career, so it's always gone their way. Like I know someone like myself, I had success and then I lost it quickly, and I could never recover for playing. So I decided to get into the coaching world. And I always tell people, like, hey, if your body allows it, if things at home are good, if you're still having fun, still enjoying it, play as long as you can. Obviously, if something comes up where you have a good job opportunity, you don't want to do it anymore, it's okay too. You can move on. But your friends are definitely right. I could definitely see you being a goalie coach, and just kind of touch on your story there of talking about the younger goalie here with Arno. It kind of made me smile. It reminded me of maybe when you were starting out with Freddie, like having the older experienced guy that had been playing a long time, and you were coming up with Freddie, and now that's maybe kind of you with Arno. So it's kind of funny how it comes full circle there. But good that you can help him out, and I'm sure he definitely relies on your knowledge, and you two working together with Petri, I think has obviously been a good dynamic trio there. Last one for you. Luckily, I told you this one before, so you could maybe think about it a bit. But what is one piece of advice or multiple pieces of advice you would give yourself or the younger generation out there? So if you're speaking to maybe some young athletes out there that are 14, 15, 16 years old listening to this podcast, what is one piece of advice or multiple pieces of advice you would give them?
No, that's not an easy question, and I think I would go on more on the mental part of being an athlete or a hockey player. Doesn't matter which position, but I love to read. I love to read a lot of books, and recently I read a book, and it's about the inner life, and for young athletes, or if I would recommend something, that's three things. First is love. I think we all started playing hockey because, well, it doesn't matter which sport, but you start because you're a kid, you love to play, and yeah, you have to just lead with your heart, because in the heart there's so much motivation and passion. And I think if you love something, you are willing to sacrifice way more instead of just doing it because you get paid for it. So first of all, I would recommend, like, do everything with your heart. Second thing is just be fully engaged every day. Learn how to focus in the right time and be physically and mentally fully engaged 100% in every practice, because time goes by so quick. And even still now, I'm 34 years old, and I know I'm not perfect. I know that there are some practices where after the practice I go off the ice, I realize that wasn't 100%, but you can give 100% of what you have that day. And that's basically this saying, no regrets. So you should be willing to give everything 100% every day. And yeah, believe in your abilities, believe in yourself, and don't, we had it just a couple minutes before, let your mind tell yourself you're not good enough, or maybe this and that is your limit. I think we are all way more, or we have way more possibility, or we're way more able to do more stuff than we think. I think if you are able to create a big belief about yourself, that's pretty big. And yeah, be uh, have a good courage. I think courage in sense of try to be in the moment, try to be in the here and now. Don't think about the outcome. Don't think about what can happen tomorrow, or don't even think about consequences. What if I do this or that? Just go ahead and do it. And yeah, be in the here and now, because there's, if you ask me, there's only two important questions in life, and that one question is, where are you? And you always, doesn't matter where you are, the answer is here. I'm here. And the second question is, what time is it? And it's now. It's always here and now, no matter where you are at the world, no matter if it's in Canada, Germany, it's always here and now.
Well, I'm a little taken back by that answer. That was a really long one, but also very detailed. Yeah, I mean, one of the things that stood out to me about it was, you talking about the courage part, and being in the here and now. And you can see throughout your career how you have done that yourself, always making these jumps at young ages. And instead of being, taken back by it and being nervous, you just kind of had the courage to do it, courage to play your first DL game, the second game of the year, home opener, 13,000 people in the Mannheim Arena. You get in the net, and obviously play well, and you were just living in the here and now and not focusing on anything else, not letting your mind wander, as you said. So it's obvious to me why you've had such a long career, and it's obviously a successful one as well. Why you've been one of the more consistent goalies over the probably last 15 years in the DEL. Your numbers speak for themselves, even though you don't like to look at them. But no, I appreciate Felix. I appreciate you coming on the podcast and kind of going down memory lane with me. And as I said, doing it in English is obviously always a little bit of a challenge at times, I would say, being your second language. But you were obviously perfect in your English. There was no mistakes. We don't have to redo anything, which you were nervous about. So
That's again speaking of the mind. I talked to Andrew before, and I'm like, I don't know, maybe my English is not good enough, but you see, the mind says you can't do it, but then you just go and do it, and then you see what happens at the end. So yeah, thanks for having me. I enjoyed it too.
yeah, you had the courage to come on the podcast. So you you survived. But yeah, no, thank you again. And yeah, thanks for taking the time for my little podcast here. For those listening, you can follow this guy on Instagram, follow him online. Obviously, follow us, Adler Mannheim. We're just gearing up now for the playoffs. And thanks for listening. And until next week, cheers and ciao.